Alright, second video of the night. I'm gonna make a video about God of War, the PS4 game. Right, and I really enjoyed it. Played it twice so far. I will probably play it again. I do remember playing God of War 3, and I remember playing a couple of God of War-esque games, right? I remember playing Conan on the PS3, I think, on my friend's console. I remember playing Heavenly Sword, which felt pretty cool. I remember playing what else? Bayonetta kind of feels like a God of War 3-esque game. I've played Devil May Cry 5. I've played a couple of other games like that where you feel like you're a powerful character going around hacking and slashing stuff, and I remember the cool thing about God of War 3 was all these epic set pieces. Like I think you fight these giant gods, right? And you're this human-sized human, but you have these blades of chaos swinging them around and slaughtering everything, and it's just this bloodbath mayhem. And in God of War 3, I believe you fight your father Zeus, like you freaking kill him, and it's just murderous, vengeful, angry, bloodlust. And then you kill yourself even, which I admired because there was something consistent about that, right? Like the end of God of War 3. Oh, I should mention spoilers. All my reviews are gonna have spoilers, right? And then he stabs himself with the sword of Olympus or whatever, and that ends God of War 3. And then you have God of War, the latest God of War 4, potentially. And it has such a different tone. It has such a different vibe. The interesting thing about the transition is that, so since in the previous God of Wars, you are this Kratos. You are this freaking manifestation of rage. And the player, get to self-insert your rage into Kratos. And, you get to just take your shit out on all these monsters and stuff, and it's just very straightforward kind of fantasy fulfillment, like a what do you call it, like a power fantasy or whatever. You feel strong and angry and no mercy, and you just slaughter everything. And you don't think in God of War 3 very much about what that's all about, or like what does it mean, or what's it for. Just you're just angry man smash things, right? And in God of War 4, they introduce a son, Atreus, right? And that changes everything. And I believe, if I remember correctly, God of War 4 was inspired to some degree by The Last of Us, by Naughty Dog, which made, which I've talked about in another video, Last of Us 1 and 2. And in The Last of Us, you are Joel. In the first game, you're Joel, and you have Ellie, your adopted daughter of sorts, following you around. And the interesting thing when there are two characters is that the player character is no longer unseen, right? Like, so you play for so many games in the past, Wolf 3D, Duke Nukem, Doom, just all of these violent games. You never think about you never really care to think about what your violence looks like to other people, right? It's just, who cares, right? You're just there to wreck shit. But in God of War 4, God of War, the latest one, it's annoying when they remove the numbers, and then in God of War, Kratos is a dad, and the game opens with Kratos' mom, Atreus' mom, Kratos' wife. Her name is Faye, right? Faye is dead, and the whole plot of God of War 4 is that Kratos and Atreus are going to scatter Faye's ashes from the highest mountain of all the realms. That's what she asked. And so the interesting thing, the game opens with, it's what's obviously a kind of painful and difficult experience for both Kratos and his son, and both of them had not previously interfaced directly with each other very much. Kratos related to Faye, who was Kratos is like this brutish man, and Faye must have been soft and kind and loving in all the right. She's also a badass. Like the Leviathan axe is hers, but she's dead now. And so Atreus spent most of his time with his mom, presumably, and had a strong mother-son relationship. Kratos had a husband-wife relationship, and Kratos and Atreus, on the other hand, had not much interaction, I think. And so their relationship is awkward. It's forced. It's they don't have an easy understanding, right? And Kratos had a really shitty relationship with his dad, Zeus, right? Kratos killed Zeus, and just it was vengeful and angry, and nowhere did Kratos learn to be tender and loving towards a son, right? And there are moments in the game where Kratos he is teaching himself to love his son. And I mean, you can tell that Kratos loves his son, but he doesn't know how to show it. He doesn't know how to express it. He's a soldier, right? He's a god of war. He's a weapon. His hands are used to crush and murder, right? And you see there's a scene where he cups his son's face tenderly, and I get so moved by that. I used that image in my thumbnail for my video about masculinity, and I said that masculinity is about using your strength to create a safe space, right? A nourishing space where you can nourish strength in others, right? There's no point. The point of being a tough guy is not for the sake of being a tough guy, right? The point of being a tough guy is to protect and nourish and to keep out kind of evil antagonists, whatever cruel, hurtful forces are coming for you, and so that you can create a space where you can have a son or a daughter or a wife and love them, right? And you in God of War, you see Kratos figuring this shit out, and it's not easy for him, and you root for him. I think early on, Kratos and Atreus have to leave, and because of a bunch of stuff, and Kratos feels that Atreus is not quite ready for this journey because they're gonna encounter monsters and challenges along the way, and Kratos tries to guide Atreus towards teaches him how to hunt, teaches him how to steady his bow, how to kill a deer for food, and Kratos sees Atreus struggling, and there's a part in the beginning of the game where Kratos thinks about touching his son to like reassure him, and then he doesn't do it, and it's like, Kratos, love your son, right? And over the course of the game, it ends with Kratos learning to do that, but along the way they have difficulties, they have conflict, they have Atreus doesn't know that he's the son of a god, and that is a source of it's a challenge for him, which is explained in the game. I don't really want to get into the details, but it's a whole bunch of beautiful things. Kratos realizes at some point Atreus falls sick, like deathly sick, and Kratos needs to ask Freya, who's another goddess, the witch in the woods or whatever. He needs to ask Freya for help, and Kratos learns to ask for help, and and at some point Atreus gets very kind of vindictive and vengeful towards enemies, and it's so interesting to be Kratos and to consider how Atreus sees Kratos. To put yourself in Atreus' point of view. He's a small kid. He's like maybe, I don't know, he feels like 11, 12, maybe 10. And he sees his father, this big monster of a man, and he sees his father smashing and destroying shit, and he isn't quite that violent or I mean, he doesn't have that disposition as much. He's a bit more of a language nerd, right? He actually one of Atreus' skills is that he can read many languages very easily. He can pick up new languages by looking at he catches on quick. He's an intellectual kind of, right? But he does admire his father. He does fear his father. There's all of these emotions and complexity in the relationship between Kratos and Atreus. And so like I find myself saying I have to recommend this game if you are a father or a son, or even if you're a woman, and or if just to understand the relationship between the characters and to watch how they experience each other. There are all these little tensions and little beautiful moments that get you to consider. And so when I was done playing the game the second time, I then went to look up people's reviews, look up what people said, and multiple people, when they get the chance to talk to the game developers, to Cory Barlog, yeah, he's not Balrog, he's Barlog, to Cory, right? And there's a guy who, there are people who come up to Cory and say that your game has made me reevaluate my relationship with my father, right? And like from my child, like my relationship with my father is not that great, and when I was growing up, I always just thought of him as an incompetent father, or someone who wasn't good enough or whatever. And after witnessing this game, I considered that I hadn't seen things from his point of view. I didn't realize that he must have struggled to get through to me as well. And now I called him after I played the game, and we are mending, we are kind of repairing our relationship. What a beautiful thing to happen as a consequence of a game you made. And this is something I really want to talk about, because I feel like people underestimate the impact that storytelling can have. And I've said this on Twitter about individual tweets even, and I feel this way about YouTube. This is the reason I put so much effort into my YouTube videos and into everything I do, really. It's just that some people make games or they make movies or whatever because it's their job, and they have to ship something, and they ship whatever they can, and it comes out and people watch it or play it, they kind of like it, they kind of whatever, have some feelings, they forget about it in a year or 2 years, and it's history. Or some people make TV shows, movies, and games that move people so deeply that they carry these stories with them for the rest of their lives, and it moves them to act in certain ways. It moves them to reach out to their dad, to their mom, to their old friends, to their former lovers, whatever. It just it heals them in some way. God of War is a restorative game. I will say that it's a nourishing game. It makes you there's a lot of violence in it, right? It's a class, you have an axe and you're hacking and slashing stuff, but it's about family. It's about dysfunctional families. It's about conflict within families. It's about, like one of the main things about the plot is that Freya's son, Baldur, Freya wanted to protect Baldur from Odin, I think, or something like that. And in her attempt to protect him, she made him immune to pretty much everything, and so he can't feel anything, and he resents her for that, and he feels like she took away his life. Like he says that to her, like you've ruined my life, and he wants to kill her even at some point, and she's willing to let him do that because she's his mother, and she feels that I think she says something like, if killing me is the only thing that will bring you peace, then do it. Like, and like Atreus is asking Kratos, like, what the fuck, dad? And Kratos is like, when you have a child, then you will understand. Like, oh man, like, wow, there's so much. I'm not a dad, but playing this game kind of makes me want to be a dad. It's that's the kind of amazing thing that great writing can do, right? And God of War is beautifully written. It's just so, there's a bunch of like imperfections in the game. Like you can tell that they probably had to ship it pretty, like, there's not a lot of boss types in the game. Like there's not a lot of enemy types. Like there's a limited-ish range of kinds of enemies that you can fight. And if they had the time and resources to do more enemies, they surely would have, but they didn't. But the scenery is beautiful, gameplay is pretty great. I do feel that the camera, one of the jokes is that the camera is up Kratos' ass, because it's just it hugs him so closely to his back, which has a very immersive feel. The whole game feels like a one shot camera take, so it feels very, very personal and real. But sometimes it's difficult to tell when there are enemies behind you and stuff like that. But that's never that big of a deal in the context of a game to me. Like, I don't. The gameplay is pretty cool. I would consider playing it again, and maybe on a harder difficulty, just to kind of challenge myself and to enjoy the game. But like, story is where it's at, man. Like, like the story is what makes me want to go back and play it again. And I want to appreciate even more the nuances of Kratos and Atreus and Baldur and Freya, and it's just, yeah. And even like, and I can really feel the amount of thought that was put into the kind of a narrative coherence of the whole game, because even at some point you face off against Magni and Modi, a pair of brothers. I believe they might be Thor's sons, maybe, or Odin's nephews or something, like just somewhere in that family. And even with them, they are a pair of brothers, and they are concerned about their relationship with their dad in some way. Like, it's just, everybody has daddy issues, man. Like, where do daddy issues come from, and what are they about, and why? It's like this game, which is about hacking and slashing shit, gets you to confront all of those things. I think that's freaking amazing. And what else? Atreus. At some point, Atreus gets like when Atreus eventually finds out that he's a god or something like that, he kind of goes. He has a bit of a tantrum / power trip, and he's like, I don't need to listen to you. Fuck you, dad. Like, like, he does do that. And there's a point where Kratos and Baldur are fighting, and Atreus even attacks Kratos at one point, and Baldur is like, I thought my relationship with my dad was fucked up, something like that. And it's really challenging. It makes you really think about family and relationships, and what does it mean to share a bond. And towards the end, I don't really want to get. I don't want to. I mean, I've spoiled some of the game, but I don't want to spoil the major stuff. But at some point, eventually, Kratos obviously has to reveal his history to his son, right? And he says, "Boy, listen, my name is Kratos. I'm from a land called Sparta. My father was Zeus, and I killed my father with my hands." And something. And then Atreus asks Kratos, is this the way it has to be for all gods? Like, do all gods end up vengeful and murdering, and do they kill their fathers? And then Kratos is like, no, you will be the god that you choose to be, and you must choose to be better. I'm like, damn, son. Right. And I kind of almost, talking about it almost makes me want to go and play it again, which I probably will at some point. But yeah, man, if you haven't played God of War, I highly recommend that you play it. It's a really good game. I look forward to the sequel, if there is one. I think there will be a sequel. I'm guessing it's going to be Atreus' story. Should be cool. Excited. So I'm surprised that this is under 20 minutes, but I feel like I've said my piece. So let me know what you think about the game. Subscribe. Yeah, done.